Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. This is a B1 Plus level ESL lesson. Today we're going to be reviewing all of the narrative tenses, and at the end you should be able to tell a story about friendship. So think about 5 friends who are important to you. When and where did you meet them? How long have you known each other? When do you catch up? And what do you do together? And feel free to answer those questions in the comments. So Kieran and Jamal talk about their best friends, and you have a similar story. So you can pause the video and read these on your own, or you can follow along as I read. I met my best friend Jordan at school. We were seated next to each other on the first day of 6th grade. We liked each other from that first day, and we've been friends ever since. We've been playing on the same football team for almost 15 years. My best friend is Ahmed. We have known each other since we were kids, but we only became friends a few years ago. I learned that he liked running and cycling, and we now hang out together at least 3 times a week. Now we have different friends for different reasons. So now we're going to read about Camilla's friendships. Again, you can pause the video, read on your own, or follow along as I read. So I keep in touch regularly with Amy. She's the person I go to for emotional support. Sometimes I don't know if Ariel is my friend or enemy. We are slowly growing apart as we get older. It's a little sad. I don't have much in common with Tyler, but we share a passion for art and music. And Jackie is up for anything. She's the friend I contact when I want to go out and have fun. So many friendships are based on having common values and interests. So rank these in order of importance in your friendships. Well, this will be different for every person, but again, if you'd like to start a conversation, feel free to put your rankings in the comments. So we've got Steve and Jesus. Why are they friends, and how and where did they meet? And so these are the two guys. Why are they friends, do you think? What do you think their shared interest is? Many of us have friends who are the same age or have a similar background. Often they are from the same culture, but not always. Sometimes a shared interest is all it takes. All right, so now you can pause the video and read the text or follow along as I read, and then we'll come back and answer the questions. Jesus and Steve met 10 years ago. Every morning, Jesus went to the beach with his friends. One morning, they had just finished their swim, and they were standing on the beach chatting when Steve arrived. They exchanged the usual buenos dias or good morning, and the same routine started to happen day after day. After a while, Jesus invited Steve to join his group of friends. Steve accepted, and they struck up an unlikely friendship. Why was it unlikely? Well, Jesus is Mexican and he runs a bakery. Steve is a retired teacher from Australia. On top of that, there is a 20-year age gap. So do you have any friends who are older or much older or younger than you? And do you have friends with a different background? And again, you can answer those questions in the comments. So one of the most important functions of language is narration. Narration is when we give a spoken or written account of something. When we narrate, we use past tense to help the reader or listener understand the sequence of events. So take 3 minutes to retell a story that your parents told you when you were a child, just to give you some practice using the past tense. So now let's take a look at the tenses used in the narrative about Steve and Jesus. So it starts off, Steve and Jesus met 10 years ago. Every morning, Jesus went to the beach with his friends. So here, went and met are the past simple. This tense is used to describe the main events in the order that they occurred. One morning, they had just finished their swim. So that's past perfect. And this tense is used to describe an event in the past that occurred just before another event in the past. And then past continuous, they were standing on the beach. So we use the past continuous to show an action that was happening in the past, which was interrupted by another event. All right, so now look closely at how we use tenses to describe the events in the past. So here we've got the events labeled A, B, C, and D. So Jesus went to the beach with his friends, that's A. And then they had just finished their swim. So that's B, the present perfect, or sorry, the past perfect. And they were standing on the beach. So they had just finished their swim. So this event just ended. And during this time period, they were standing there. When Steve arrived, so Steve's arrival is also in the past, but it interrupted their standing there. They exchanged the usual buenos dias or good morning. So exchanging, that's again still a past event, but it happened after these other events. And the same routine started to happen day after day. And all of these events took place in the past, but we're kind of showing the order in which they happened. So here's an example of the past simple. They met at 10, went swimming at 10:30, and had lunch at 12 p.m. The past continuous, the sun was shining brightly. So it's a continuous activity that started in the past. And the past perfect, by the time Steve arrived, they had already finished swimming. So they'd already finished the swimming, and then Steve arrived. All right, so now practice your narrative tenses and complete the text with the correct tense. Again, you can pause the video, try this on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. Samira and Carla met about 2 years ago. Samira had her own advertising company, and Carla was looking for a company to make advertisements. They decided to have lunch together. Unfortunately, Carla wrote down the wrong time. When Carla arrived at the restaurant, Samira had already ordered lunch. Samira was a little upset, but not for long. After lunch, they decided to get a coffee at the cafe down the road. They were walking along the road when suddenly Tom said hello. Both Samira and Carla said hello. They both knew Tom. That made them laugh. All right, so here's some more uses of the narrative tenses. We can show a longer action in the past continuous when comparing it with a shorter action. We were eating dinner when I saw Katie across the road. What were you doing when I saw you at the station yesterday? We often connect the past simple and the past continuous with while, when, or as. The phone rang while we were eating dinner. William wrote a book while flying from London to Warsaw. I fell down as I was crossing the road. I was still learning English when we met for the first time. Remember that we don't use state verbs in the past continuous. So you would never say we weren't knowing each other when we lived in Perth. It would be we didn't know each other when we lived in Perth. All right, so now match the actions and events to the timeline. You want to read the text carefully. What are the events and actions A through G on the timeline? The first and last event I've already done for you. So the first event was I was waiting, and the last event was we realized it. So one day while I was waiting at the bus stop, another student came along. So that would be event B. We started talking, so that's event C. The bus went straight past us, So that's D. We both laughed. Event E. A few moments later, we got on another bus, F. We were talking for quite a while when we suddenly realized here that we had already passed the stop. All right, so now complete the next part of the text with the correct tense. Again, you can pause the video, try this on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So why was it unlikely? Well, Jesus is Mexican and he runs a bakery. Steve is a retired teacher from Australia. On top of that, there is a 20-year age gap. Additionally, there was a language barrier. So Jesus didn't speak a lot of English, even though he had studied the language when he was in school, and Steve's Spanish was limited to ordering food and asking for directions. After they had known each other for a couple of weeks, they started meeting up to play pool. It wasn't always easy. When Jesus and his friends told jokes in Spanish, Steve couldn't understand a word. At times, he felt a little bit left out, but Jesus was always quick to include him in the conversation. Now read the final part of the text and look closely at the verb tenses in the final paragraph. Why have the verb tenses changed in this paragraph? So Jesus is now married with 2 children. He and Steve don't spend as much time together as they did before, but they are still good friends. They like to get together for a meal and have a laugh about the problems they had when they used to communicate. Well, here most of this is written in present tense because it's telling about what is happening now in their lives. So we don't need to use the past or the past perfect. All right, so now take notes about a friendship that you have and think especially around the time that you met. So here's some questions you can answer. When did you first meet? Did you start hanging out together immediately? What did you do together and how often did you do it? Did you ever have a big disagreement or argument? And how did your friendship evolve and change over time? And then think about the story that you're going to tell, the events between the time you met and now. Put them in order on the timeline. And then you can use your timeline of events to help you use the narrative tenses correctly. And then you can try this. You can type your story online if you'd like in the comments, or you can tell the story in English to a friend and see if they can figure out the order of the events. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Please like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.